The chair thanks the gentleman. Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Well, thank the chairman. I find it wonderful that a Democrat is lauding the achievements of Richard Nixon. But I disagree with his characterization that these are bedrock environmental laws. I would compare them to beach sand, where they shift every time there's an administration. There's a sandbar here, and then there's a sandbar there. Or maybe magma instead of bedrock, because they just keep growing and destroying every industry in its path and creating harm. So I would disagree that these are bedrock environmental laws. In fact, if the people who voted for the EPA or the Clean Water Act or the Clean Air Act could see what would become of their law, I think they would have second thoughts on doing it. But, you know, I'm generally not a fan of bills that have 18 bills inside of them. I got to say that. I'd honestly prefer to vote on these individually. But they all seek to solve one problem. And so I appreciate that, and I think they do belong together. And the problem is the problem that the Democrats ignored, and it's actually led to us getting the majority. I mean, back home before the election, the one thing that people cared about the most, and it's somewhat of a cliche, but it's also quite true, the price of gasoline, particularly in rural America where people have to drive to work. In rural America where we're raising the food and creating the energy, but oftentimes have to leave that area to get to work every day or drive long distances because people don't want these things in the city. the energy that they use, they'd rather not have it in their backyard. So it's in rural areas, and we have to buy energy, more of it, to actually get to work. So we're sitting here today, in large part, in the majority, because the minority, when they were in the majority, ignored the basic fundamental question of what are you doing to lower energy prices. The government produces a measure of inflation that I always chuckle at when I see it. It says the rate of inflation independent of food, housing, or energy. I have no idea why they published that, because I don't know a single person that could go, or family that could go without any of those. Everybody needs food, housing, and energy. In fact, when you raise the price of those things artificially or unnecessarily, it's so regressive. I mean, we recognize that it's regressive. That's why there's a SNAP program for food. That's why there's HUD for housing. That's why there's LIHEAP for energy, because we've done so many things to raise the price, and everybody needs a certain amount of all three of those elements to keep their family warm and dry and fed, that it just doesn't make sense, the things that government has done. So I would say if the other side of the aisle had spent less time focused on January 6th and more time on solving this problem, we wouldn't be in the majority. This bill wouldn't even be coming to the floor. Elections have consequences. So just as an example of this, I wish I could play a video in here, but I understand we have different rules in the Rules Committee. We can't have props. I've thought about playing it on the microphone because I was pretty sure I could get away with it, but for at least once. But instead, I'll have to subject you to me reading the transcript of this. Secretary of Energy Granholm was asked, and I think we all remember this. I'm sure all the Democrats winced, and the Republicans laughed or grimaced when they heard her answer. She was, in relation to rising gas prices, when they were $2.89 and going up, she was asked on TV, what is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America? Her answer was to laugh hysterically for several seconds and then say, that is hilarious. If I had a magic wand, you know, oil is a global market. It's controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC. And they did make a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning. So, you know, the interesting thing is the Department of Energy has an energy information agency. That agency does the forecasting of what oil and gas prices are going to be as of right now. Their forecast for the beginning of December is that on average gas prices will be about $3 and 5 at the beginning of December. So she was actually able to forecast it. This is one of those few times when you can go back and find out that somebody in government could see what was going to happen. But she committed the same crime twice. The crime is candor. In Washington, D.C., you can be convicted for candor. Candor is saying the truth. Like, nobody in Washington, D.C. is supposed to say the truth. But she said something that's true. She said, they don't have a plan. She didn't have a plan. She also said that the price was going to go up. And that's a problem when you admit to those two things, that you don't have a plan and that the price is going to go up. Oh, and that we're dependent on foreign production. She committed candor, 3 counts of candor in this one statement. And you could feel the Democrat momentum for keeping the House just sort of deflating right when she said that. So I support this bill.